Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's Friday Reflections on this Friday, the 30th of July, 2021. I hope you are well wherever you are tuning into this from and that things are going good in your lives. Today, I would like to read from this beautiful book, the Utterances of Shaykh Abd al-Jilani, Malfuzat, translated by Muhtar Holland into English. This book is a few years old. It was published, I mean, the original is very old, but the translation is a few years old. So I'm not sure if this is still in print anywhere, but it's a beautiful book. And I would like to read today from page 47 of this book, or 46. We'll start on page 46. So this is from the Utterances of Shaykh Abd al-Jilani. Wa alaikum salam. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Being in the company of the servants of Allah is like being in the company of a lion. Fear and wariness are appropriate in both cases, as long as the lion has something else to keep him satisfied. He will not concern himself with you, because all his attention is directed elsewhere. But if you go and bother him instead of retiring to a safe distance, he will savage you. To be in the company of a champion of truth, a Siddiq, is much the same, because that is how they are in the company of the king. Among the companions of al-Junaid, there was a man who was having doubts about the spontaneously arising notion, Qadir. Al-Junaid was aware of this, so he asked the man, "What they are saying about you, is it true?" He said, "Yes." So al-Junaid said, "Let an utterance come through your heart." The man said, "Very well." And when asked what he had uttered inwardly, he replied, "I uttered such and such." But al-Junaid said, "No, that wasn't it." Then the man tried again, and when he reported what he had uttered inwardly, he was told again, "No." He then let one more utterance come to him through his heart and reported to al-Junaid, who yet again said, "No." So the man said, "O Sheikh, my experience is genuine, so you had better check your own." To this, al-Junaid replied, "I know that everything you told me was true. I simply wanted to test the purity of your heart and its steadfastness." Their hearts, the hearts of the people of the Lord, are the channels of his will, the treasure houses of his knowledge, the bosom of his mystery, the treasure houses of destiny in the valley of destiny. Whenever their innermost beings go on a tour within the precincts of the palace of destiny, they become acquainted with all kinds of knowledge and secrets. What can be built with well-propped timber? What can be made of outer forms with no inner content? The deaf, dumb, and blind, so they do not understand, which is in Surah al-Baqarah, ayah 171. So you see here an emphasis on the fact that the people who are very close to Allah, when they become more God conscious, they develop more taqwa, then Allah may send them inspirations. Or you could also say everybody is actually receiving these inspirations, but Most of us have so much cloud around us, around our hearts, and just around us, so many distractions. So we don't see what Allah is telling us through his creation and through his divine inspirations. We're not always perceptive to this. That takes, we have to purify our hearts, and we have to clear this cloud around us of distractions. And when we do that, we start to be able to see things which we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. So this is why, if a person is still in that condition where they are surrounded by clouds, both externally in the world around them, distractions, but also internally, that their spiritual heart is clouded with internal distractions, then they will not be able to easily see what inspirations Allah is sending them. And so they may question whether that actually happens with other people. But this is a mistake on our behalf, because we are assuming that everybody is of our state of mind, of our state of heart. Whereas someone who, like my sheikhs, who have dedicated decades of their lives to studying Islam and to sitting with their pious sheikhs. And as well as that, all the work that they have done in helping other people, both practically and spiritually, for all these decades, how can they be in the same condition as someone who has just embraced Islam, or someone who they are born into a Muslim family, but they've never really lived Islam, and maybe they just started getting more interested again, or someone who, yes, they will go to the prayers at the mosque sometimes and join in the odd activity here and there, but they're not really working upon themselves. What is the comparison between these people? There is no comparison. And obviously someone who is truly pious, someone who truly has developed that taqwa, they're going to be able to perceive and see things which a person who hasn't would not be able to see and perceive. Shaykh Abd al-Jilani continues, a certain person wrote 360 stories, delivering one story every day to the local prince. He never got too bored to keep trying, until at long last he received the official seal of approval he was seeking to obtain. In your case, however, you devote a few short days for a few short nights to making the requests of Allah. Exalted is he. Then you get bored and resort to creatures instead. Why not remember the man who wrote all these stories? As long as you remain attached to creatures, you will not prosper. You must turn in repentance from creatures to the Lord of truth. And let your standing in waiting be the threshold of the door of his nearness. The hand of love and nearness will draw you in. You will come to be a permanent fixture of that mansion. Eventually, as you experience all the facilities and amenities, comfort will come to you from every side. Your wings will grow strong, and you will fly up to the battlements of that mansion. These battlements will come to be your tower. If you fall, you will fall into the palace courtyard. You will spend all your time in the presence of the owner of the palace. You will be a petitioner whose requests are granted. If you wish to promote the welfare of your fellow creatures, this is how you must go about it, instead of spouting useless drivel. The Shaykh, may Allah be pleased with him, was getting at the sermons delivered to the people by the preachers. To perform the prayer, Salah, is to make a connection, Sila, with Allah, exalted is He, after becoming detached from everything other than Him. So we go back to the previous bit. There's a message here. The Shaykh is talking about what I just previously mentioned, actually. I mean, a person who has dedicated decades to the service of Allah. Do you think Allah will ignore them? If they pray to Allah and seek Allah's blessing with something, do you think Allah is going to ignore them? Obviously, their position with Allah is going to be different to a person who has just spent a short amount of time praying and then just messing about the other time, or he's just doing other things. There's a big difference between these two types of people, and that's not to knock a person who prays, even if they only pray sparingly. Any prayer is good, but the Shaykh is pointing out there is obviously a difference in degree, and there's more to Islam than just praying. And a person who has spent decades in service is going to be in a different position than other people. And this was also, there's a note here. The Shaykh, may Allah be pleased with him, was getting at the sermon delivered to the people by the preachers. So the Shaykh was highlighting how the common preachers, the common imams, that just lead the prayers at the mosque, but may not necessarily be scholars, may not necessarily be people who are focusing on developing their taqwa to a deep level. They're just preaching. And we see this today. There's a difference. I mean, sometimes some of these people, they're preaching good stuff, but they're just preaching. And there's a difference between preaching and living. If you're living the way, rather than just preaching the way, then you're really, truly authentic. And you will know what you're talking about. And you will be able to help people in a way that someone who's just preaching would not be able to help. Then the Shaykh continues to the next point. To perform the prayer is to make a connection with Allah, exalted is He, after becoming detached from everything other than Him. The body cannot be divided up between those two situations, detachment from creatures and attachment to the Lord of Truth. This refers to the prayer of the people of the Lord. As for the prayer of ordinary servants, the way they go about it is to set the garden of paradise to the right of their heart, and the fire of hell to the left of it, and the narrow bridge in front of it, with the Lord watching over it. As for the prayer of the lovers, it's detachment from creatures and attachment to Him. So the Shaykh here is highlighting there's a difference between the prayer of the average worshipper, the average Muslim. It could even be a person of any religion, There's a difference between the lay person, we would say in English, and the person who is truly in love with Allah and devoted to Allah deeply and truly. And obviously, they're both, if you looked at them praying, it might look similar from the outside, but what is actually going on inwardly is quite different in degree. The person who's truly loving Allah, the person who's truly present in that prayer with Allah, is perceiving things completely different to the person who is just going through the normal prayer. And again, there's blessing in both. This is not to say that there isn't, but it's important we understand that there is obviously a difference, and the ideal is to be striving for the latter. The sure sign that your lower self, nafs, is genuinely in need of food is that you hear something crying from your inner batin, like the sound made by young chickens. When you hear that sound, you must provide it with what it needs for its survival. As Allah exalted is He has said, and He has inspired it, the self, with what is wrong for it and what is right for it. Quran 91, Ayah 8. It is He who makes us laugh and makes us weep. Quran Surah 53, Ayah 43. You cannot put these two verses of the Quran into practice until after the heart has entered into the presence of its king. It is only then that the action and inspiration come about. Before the entry has been made, you must distinguish between a direct inner receiving and a suggestion inspired by the devil, or by a natural impulse, or by a selfish instinct, or by an angel. If you wish to join someone's company for the sake of pleasing Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, you must perform your minor ablution with meticulous correctness, while the mind is inactive and the eyes are not wandering. So this previous point, there's obviously different inspirations that come to the heart. Only a person who is really, you practice in tariqah, actually, I would say, a person who really, they're living Islam every day. They are striving to have true taqwa, true God consciousness. Only a person who is doing that would start to see the difference between actual inspirations that come from Allah within their heart, a suggestion inspired by the devil, or a suggestion from a natural impulse, or a suggestion from a selfish instinct. These are different categories. Or from an angel. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So al-Qadir, al-Jilani is separated into 5 different inspirations that can come to the heart. One is a genuine divine inspiration. Another is from the devil. Another is from a natural impulse. Another is from a selfish instinct from the nafs. And another can be from an angel. The average person can't distinguish between these impulses. You really have to go through spiritual training to be able to distinguish them and to understand, even before you get to this stage, to understand whether it is a good impulse or a good inspiration and a bad inspiration. Just to separate even into those two. Most people, they don't know. But there's actually 5, according to Shaykh Abd al-Jilani, 5 different categories. Then the Shaykh continues, if you wish to join someone's company for the sake of pleasing Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, you must perform your minor ablution, your wudu, with meticulous correctness, while the mind is inactive and the eyes are not wandering. Then proceed to perform your prayer, your salah. You will open the door of the prayer with your ritual purity and the door of your Lord with your prayer. Then ask Him When you have finished, whom should I take as a guide? Who is the one who can report on your authority? Who is the one singled out? Who is the deputy? Who is the delegate? He is generous. Allah is generous. He will not let you suffer disappointment. Without a doubt, He will grant inspiration to your heart. He will grant revelation to your innermost being. He will show you a clear sign. He will open the doors to shed light on your path. Someone who seeks and strives will surely find. Allah says in the Quran, as for those who strive in our cause, surely we will guide them to our paths. Surah 29, Ayah 69. And for anybody who doubts this, I can say from personal experience, even before I embraced Islam, I prayed and I asked Allah to take the confusion away from me. I begged Allah. I prayed like I'd never prayed before. And Allah answered that prayer. And hence today I'm sitting before you as a Muslim, doing my best to live Islam. Allah will answer that prayer if you pray with true sincerity. Of course, this I know from my own experience. And we know this from what Shaykh Abd al-Jilani is saying. But unless you've experienced that yourself, it's hard. It's hard to explain experiences. And you must realize this from things that perhaps you've experienced, which you know other people haven't. If you try to describe that experience to someone who's never experienced what you've experienced, it's very hard to convey that. But it doesn't mean it's not true. The decisive factor lies within you, not in what he, that's someone you are thinking of joining, has to say. So when the angels have converged, when the angles have converged from your heart's point of view, and everything points to a particular individual, go ahead and join his company. Your fellowship with him should be for you like the fellowship of lions and snakes. Pay no attention to his poverty, the gaps in his pedigree, his straitened circumstances, his shabby appearance, and his clumsy mode of expression. What is really significant about him resides in his inner being, not in his outer, not in his physical constitution, and not on his face. So this is discussing who you would take as a guide, who you would take as a teacher of your deen. This is very good advice. We should pray very carefully about this. Not just accept someone just because they are handsome. Not just accept someone because lots of other people follow them. Not just accept someone because they're quoting from the Quran and Hadith. Because for sure, there are lots of people who quote from the Quran and Hadith. Doesn't mean that they truly understand them. Doesn't mean that they're living them. But if we pray and ask Allah, because Allah is the true teacher, Allah is the true guide behind whichever guide we take within this world as a human being teacher. It's Allah who is guiding us, really. So we should ask Allah's help. Pray to Allah and ask Allah to inspire and guide our hearts towards a person who is genuine, towards a person who is really teaching Islam, and also use logic and reason, not just rush to join someone's company, but to wait up and to wait, be patient, and see what Allah's answered to our prayers. And the Shaykh continues, do not be in a hurry to speak, and do not try to get his attention straight away. Be on the lookout for the useful service he performs on behalf of his Lord. He is the clerk, and the instructions he notes down are not for himself, but for others. He is an ambassador. He is the waiter, and the dish is for someone else. He is the communicator, and the communication is for someone other than himself. You must therefore be ready to receive what Allah may disclose by means of his tongue. Do not wander out of his sight. Do not overstep his limit, but always stand waiting with the head bowed in silence, fearful and timid. Of course, in today's world, this level of adab is so very, very rare. But at least with respect, you know, we should have respect towards our teachers, even if we don't show that in exactly the same way as Shaykh Abd al-Jilani describes here, because this was a different time. But we must have respect towards our teachers. Do not harbor doubts concerning his spiritual state, nor about his words and his actions. You must consider him superior to any clever person, and let him steer you from his presence toward his Lord, not toward any other. And this piece of advice in this paragraph is after you have prayed and asked Allah to guide you to a teacher, and after you feel pretty certain that Allah has answered that prayer and guided you to the right person. And then, if you really believe you're being guided to the right person, you really feel it, then, and you've seen signs that indicate this to you, then you shouldn't be doubting his spiritual state or listening to, other people who are trying to bring them down. One thing I have seen with the people that I'm absolutely convinced are guided by Allah and are true teachers of Islam is that they have many critics, and there are many people who've come against them, both from the secular world and also people claiming to be Muslims who have criticized them harshly. And though the criticism may be unjustified, it still exists. And so if you listen to that, you may doubt. But if you have already prayed and Allah has answered your prayer and guided you to your teacher, and you have seen signs that this is the right guidance, and also what the teacher is teaching you is making sense, why would you listen to such people who are saying outrageous things, which you know in your heart not to be true? That would be foolish. Shaykh Abd al-Jilani continues, the joker you should not encourage, the prattler you should not respond to. We have been given the same natural disposition as the animals, but the intellect discriminates. The sacred law discriminates. Knowledge discriminates. Nearness discriminates. Direct experience and obedient service discriminate, while the original source is one. If they put their knowledge into practice, when they came across a dead man, they would bring him back to life, or in the case of a sinner, they would remind him to mend his ways. Bowls are brought to him in his house for other people. He proceeds to collect the tax, and then when he has collected it, he hands it over the king. He also has a salary he takes from the people, but not for himself. Your learned scholar is an ignorant man. Your ignorant man is a slanderous liar. Your pious abstainer is full of worldly desires. Do not exploit your religion for worldly gain. Only the hereafter can be gained through religion. Very important piece of advice there. There are those who exploit their religion for worldly gains, and you see them growing rich off it. And Allah is warning here, not through the words of this Shaykh, it is in the Quran, but do not exploit your religion for worldly gain. Only the hereafter can be gained through religion. No, that doesn't mean that. I mean, if you do the right things, good stuff may come your way in a worldly sense as well. But the thing is, you shouldn't be using your deen in order to grow rich. You shouldn't be, intending to do that and striving for that. I know my sheikh, for instance, my first sheikh, Sufi Abdullah, people used to give him donations, but it wasn't for him. He didn't take it for himself, but he would ask them, is this for the mosque? Is this for a charity? What is this money for? And it made an impression upon me. This is how we should be. We shouldn't be taking money for du'as or money for this sort of thing. This is actually a duty as a Muslim. The Sheikh, may Allah the Exalted be well pleased with him, also spoke about his words. Exalted is he. Call upon your Lord humbly and in secret. He does not love those who go too far in the wrong direction. Surah 7, Ayah 55. He gave this verse of the Quran its literal interpretation, since in this context, the obvious meaning of al-Mutadi, singular of al-Mutadin, which sometimes means aggressors, is a person who calls upon anyone other than him, i.e. other than Allah, one who puts his requests to anyone apart from Allah. Abdullah ibn Masud used to say to his companions, you are the polish, jila of my heart. If a person is ready to listen to me for the sake of Allah and for the benefit to be derived from my words, he will be a kind of polish. But otherwise, he should stay away from me, for his presence will cast a cloud. When Abraham, peace be upon him, had escaped from the fiery furnace, and his livestock and servants had come to be many, he had a mansion built in Syria with numerous entrances. He retired to live there after he had paid off the cost of his construction and said farewell to his people. He went on into retirement in order to provide training for his successors. What is bosom friendship? It is companionship, loving affection, and togetherness. There's a warning here. Your learned scholar, alim, is an ignorant man. Your ignorant man is a slanderous liar. Your pious abstainer is full of worldly desires. It's a warning about human nature and about the fact that, someone who's been on a course to become an alim, they may have passed the course and they will obviously have some knowledge from that. But it doesn't mean the inside they have taqwa. Some will, some won't. It depends whether they've done that as well, because, striving for taqwa is different from going on a course to become an alim. And so on the one hand, they will have some knowledge, but in other respect, they may be ignorant. Whereas an ignorant man is a slanderous liar. So, an ignorant man is, even worse. But and a pious abstainer is full of worldly desires. So even someone who abstains from worldly things, who fasts a lot, they can also still be very full of worldly desires, still have issues with their nafs. And, such is to be human. And it takes a lot of efforts in order to overcome that. And unless a person is following those spiritual training, how can they overcome that? It's nothing to do with this dress, what people are wearing, or the length of the beard. Some people think it is. But anybody can grow a long beard. Anybody can dress in particular clothes or wear a ring or, wear a particular hat or a turban. The question is that dress reflecting their inner being, or is that dress just a costume? Anybody can wear the costume, but not everybody really has that reality in their heart, or even a degree of that reality in their heart. And to be honest, today we all fall short in this day and age. We all fall short because of the times we're living in. It is so difficult to follow this perfectly. But we can do our best. We can do our best and have sincerity in our heart. And that is what really matters. Anyway, I hope you find these talks useful. And I wish you all, if you're in the UK, a very good evening. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels, so you can be kept up to date, and to my website at paulsarmstrong.com. I wish you all a good evening if you're in the UK, or assalamu alaikum wherever you are in the west of the world. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.